Hey guys, what's up? I haven't done a video in a long time. So this is going to be a fairly quick video. I'm going to try to do this little parable, if you will, and hopefully you get the message. But there were 25 guys, okay, in this scenario. So just imagine everything. And they were working at a lumber warehouse. Now, out of the 25 guys, 24 of them were all holding the base of where all of this lumber was stacked. And for whatever reason, the brackets broke and the lumber fell and they all crushed their legs, okay? So now, mind you, they were all taken there. So all of these guys were taken to this warehouse. None of them had a vehicle. And so now they're stuck there with broken legs. Now I said there were 25 of them and 24 of them broke their legs. So the one guy who didn't break his legs was nervous, didn't know what to do. Obviously there was no car or anything to go to, but you know, he couldn't just leave these guys stranded there. Now the cameras are all over the place, okay? And there's another warehouse, you know, about 3 or 4 blocks away. And people are looking kind of through the window from the other warehouse because they heard the big sound. And everybody's looking at this one guy walking around. So the one guy, boop, boop, he pulls out a phone and he calls in for a car. So he calls one of his relatives who lives as nearby as they possibly can, and they pick him up. And after they pick him up, he leaves. Now, the 24 guys there are cursing his name and they're going crazy. Now, mind you, he's not telling them what he's doing, okay? If he would have told them what he was doing, they probably would have told him no because they need the help now. But what he did was basically he called a friend to get a car. And so he got the car, he went over to get himself a truck. So he had to go to the bank so he can go to the rent-a-car place so he can rent a truck. So after he rented the truck and he went through the whole process, he went back on his way to pick up the guys because the truck will hold more people. And then he hit traffic. And then as he started to get in, some of the roads were locked and then he couldn't get in. So he had to go another route, which took even longer. Now, everybody inside of the warehouse is cursing this guy's name, how he abandoned them, he left them, how could he? They used to be boys, they worked together, and how he's so evil, and they knew he was that type of person, and he's the bad guy, and all of this, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, they don't know he's out there going through all of this so he could try to get a truck. Now, could he have just taken a few people in his cousin's car and go one by one by one by one? Possibly, but that would have taken longer. In his mind, he thought, you know what, instead of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, what if I just go get the bigger truck so when I come back, I can help all of them at the same time? Now, of course, that is an extreme example and totally fictitious and probably would never happen. Maybe, God forbid, I hope not. But the moral of the story is that sometimes a person would have to leave a place in order to enrich whatever he or she needs to enrich in their life so that they could come back even stronger, even better, and even more prepared to help everybody else back at the warehouse, so to speak. And you know, in that process of going and doing all of this for these people, you hear slandering and murmuring and all of this other stuff that goes on because you're here trying to do something for them. They don't appreciate it because they don't see it. Now, in this particular example, of course, if the people didn't see it, I can only imagine what they were thinking and what they would say because they didn't know he was just picking up and going. They just thought he bolted. But anyone who knew him, these guys who worked with him, anybody who knew him would have immediately thought, I don't know, that Bob, you know, he's a good guy. He's a man of his integrity and he's always doing what he says he's gonna do. And you know, he's never let me down. Maybe he's gonna go get help. And I'm sure some of them thought that, but in the process of time and pain and all that other stuff, you know, sometimes the brain just flips. And so everybody cursed him. Now he comes back and they see him, he's like, hey guys, and they're like, oh, beep, 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 blang, and all these curses and all that stuff. And he's like, what happened? Well, you left us, you abandoned us, da, 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 da. And he goes, I got a massive truck with a whole bunch of rows of seats so we can all go together to the hospital. That's what I was gone for. Now again, because they didn't know that he was leaving, I give it to them. They would be upset. They didn't know. They could have held on to what they thought he was as a man of integrity, but they didn't know. Now imagine this whole scenario where the person, everything is exactly the same, but the person, Billy Bob, told them, I am going to go. My cousin's picking me up in his little car. I'm gonna use my cash to find a place to rent a car. I'm gonna rent a car, but it's gonna be a big enough truck where we can all get into it, and then I can take you all to the hospital. Now, they would have thought of that process, and while it sounds great, some of them would have said that's gonna be too much time. Some of them would have asked, well, you know, how big is the truck going to be? Some of them would have said, you know, when do you think you'll be back, more or less, and so on and so forth. And it just would have been a long, arduous task when he could have just done it. So, with regards to time, he didn't know on his way back he was gonna hit traffic, and then once he got close, he was gonna hit a detour and all of these bumps on the road. But his intentions, as a man of his integrity, a man of his word, he was going to come back to the people that he was going to help. And anyone who knew him for more than 3 seconds, let alone all the years that they worked together, would have known that. And they got into a panic frenzy and basically chose to talk ill about him. Now, imagine if a person actually did tell them. Well, if a person told you all of the steps, then if that person is a man of integrity, then he will do exactly what he said he was going to do. And that is what he is doing. So you never know what's happening on the other side of the spectrum. You never know what's happening on the other side of time. You know, people may start to, like I said, murmur and slander and gossip and all that other good stuff. Meanwhile, the person that went out there into the field had nothing but the best intentions to come back and help. And I think it's a story that we all should kind of look at in our lives, because I'm sure that's happened many times in our lives where we think one thing and it turns out being something else. I know I'm to blame for a lot of that as well. I imagined a million things that people were doing that just wasn't true. It was in my mind. So I hope you take heed to that cool little story that I put together, and at the very least that you got to imagine, you know, with me, all of the little characters and the spots and the truck and the car and the cousins and all that other stuff. I totally made that up right off the top of my head. Anyway, guys, it's good hearing from you, but if you have any comments, of course, you know the drill. I have a million ways for you to be reached, but primarily DMing me or leaving me a message here would be awesome. All right, guys, look forward to hearing from you soon. Peace.